What is up, folks? Welcome to another episode of the Big Red Machine. I'm looking forward to this one. If you may remember, we did one of these last year. This is the 2029 version of the Cincinnati Reds tier list. As you can see, we have our pitchers and hitters on the right. We are only going to be really looking at guys. I think it's guys with 75 or more innings, maybe 50 or more innings, and 150 or more at bats. We're not going to be looking at players who we traded or anything like that. And we are going to be ranking them from S to F tier, which should be interesting for a team that finished 59 and 103 and the second worst record in baseball by a whole one game. We tried to catch the Pirates there at the very end. We dropped 3 out of 4 to them in the final series, but alas, we will end up with the second overall pick. But that is next year's problem. As we go through a team that was 13th in runs scored, 15th in runs against, a negative 206 run differential. Remember before the season when I had hope? Well, maybe a little misguided. But you know what? As I talked a lot about in the last video, which was a look around the minors, if you missed that one, make sure you check it out. The future, I believe, is bright. But let's take a look back at what happened last season and rank these guys on where we think they should be tier-wise. So let's start with Leland Savage. Now, Leland Savage was a Rule 5 pick from the White Sox and very quickly emerged, had a great early part of the season. He was 5-2 across the first couple of months of the season. Was pitching really, really well. It made a couple of relief appearances and then got himself into the starting rotation. For a Rule 5 pick, he logged the most innings on our team this year, 189.1. Led the team with 2.4 wins above replacement. He finishes with a 10-15 record, 4.56 ERA, slightly better FIP at 4.27. Does have a 3.42 BABIP, so there's some room to improve there. He's only 27, so a guy that we'll have under control for a little bit. 8 Ks per 9, 3.2 walks per 9, a 290 opponent's batting average. Again, he had that 2.4 wins above replacement. But because he was a Rule 5 pick, we slot Leland Savage in to the B area. Again, what more could you expect from a Rule 5 guy that, to lead your team in innings, lead your team in wins above replacement? To me, that is very much worthy of a B. Next up, we got Brody Risbro, another Rule 5 pick, this time from the Angels. I'll admit, I had high hopes for Risbro coming into the season. He has a very interesting profile with 55 stuff, 35 movement, 70 control. It just really didn't work out. Now, again, a massive difference here, a 6.04 ERA, but a 4.59 FIP. So obviously some rough luck there. He did finish with 1.6 wins above replacement, 11-16 records. He showed signs of brilliance. There were games, if I look through, there were games where I really thought, hey, he's going to figure it out. 7 innings, 1 run allowed. 8 innings, 3 hits, 1 run allowed. But the problem is those would always be sandwiched by giving up 7, giving up 6. He's 32. Not sure if he's going to be somebody that we're going to tender to a contract next season. We will have to see. Again, the giving up double-digit hits per 9, not great. Obviously, 3.30 BABIP, a little bit of unluckiness there. But I have to put Risbro into the C column. What saves him from being a D is the fact he did eat 178 and 2/3 innings. He didn't walk a lot of guys, which was nice. And again, there were some really good spots where he had some really good starts. So just a little bit better than being a D. He ends up finding himself firmly planted in the C column. Next up, we have J.C. Struck, who was a guy we picked up on waivers from Toronto during the 28 season. He was great. Well, for every bit that he was great in the 2028 season, he was struggling in the 2029 season. He led the National League with 19 losses, Another guy whose FIP outperformed his actual ERA, 5.16 ERA, 4.60 FIP, 1.5 wins above replacement. I think the big thing for Struck, obviously, you know, the home runs. He's not a big movement guy. Gave up 30 home runs. It's the Ks were down. You know, I mean, I don't want to necessarily down, but I think I expected more. You know, he had 156 over 171 innings. He did give up a lot of hits. Gave up 200 hits. Again, on a, you know, it's hard to look at win-loss record on a team that lost 103 ball games. Again, Struck pitched well. You know, as a 34-year-old who we paid $7 million to, I think, you know, he kind of lives in this same sort of Risbro bubble where, you know, you could make a case that he was a C. You could make a case that he was a D. I think when you look at the sum of all parts, though, I think you can be comfortable putting him in the C column. Again, he wasn't, the win-loss record aside, he wasn't terrible. He had some good spurts. He did pretty much what was expected of him. You know, I think with a better team supporting him, I think if we look at, let me see here how quickly I can pull this up, because I'm sure we will probably be not surprised that his run support was 2 runs per game, 2 runs even. And for a guy that had 14 quality starts to be 7 and 19 seems like, you know, again, not being very well supported by the rest of the team. So I'm comfortable putting Struck in the C column. Owen Farner is kind of a swing guy that we used over the course of the season. He ends up appearing in 45 games total. He gets 20 starts. He goes 3.9-1 with a 4.90 ERA. He does finish with 2 wins above replacement, which is nice. His FIP was actually 3.88. Another guy that... Again, drastically overperformed his ERA with his FIP. Farner was a nice piece in the back of the rotation. He was a guy we picked up late in this free agent window. He goes 134 innings. He does give up 146 hits, 48 walks, 113 Ks. So, you know, he's got that 7.6 Ks per 9, 3.2 walks per 9. Again, this is just a nice back end of the rotation guy. You know, he didn't cost us a lot of games. He ate some innings for us in a season that was more or less lost. Again, that's a C-worthy performance to me. You know, a lefty, innings eater who, you know, kept the ball in the ballpark, which was nice. You know, 0.7 home runs per 9 with a guy with 40 movement is huge. Yeah, I just think, again, you know, I think he better supported with maybe a few different defensive pieces and, you know, better run support. Again, this is another guy that suffered drastically from no run support. Run support 2.2 runs per start. Just not good. So Farner falls into that C column. A guy that will not be falling anywhere. Listen, let's just get this out of the way right now. And Brennan Murphy falls squarely into, if there was a column below F, that's where Brennan Murphy would end up. How the tables have turned. You know, towards the end of the 2028 season, Brennan Murphy was getting things back on track, was pitching well, was picking up wins, having really, really good start after start after start. Enough that we thought, you know what? We're going to be in this rebuild. We need a guy that's going to eat some innings for us. He had 183 and 2/3 last season. So we hooked the guy up with a $40 million deal over 3 years. Fast forward a year later, and Brennan Murphy is essentially dead. He's gone from a 55, 45, 60 profile to a 35, 45, 55 profile. Not that overall matters, but he has dropped from June of last season as a 68 overall. He's a 25 overall now, which he goes 2-9. So he makes 37 appearances, 19 starts. He goes 2-9, 5.93 ERA, 107 and 2/3 innings pitched. Gives up 149 hits, 71 earned runs, 20 home runs. So he has a 3.28 opponent's average, a 1.72 whip, 1.7 home runs per 9, 12.5 hits per 9, only 5.4 Ks per 9, and ultimately a negative 0.6 wins above replacement. This is the definition of an F. And to be honest, the F is on me. Obviously hindsight is 2020. I would not have re-signed him if I had known this was going to happen. But again, I am pretty confident in saying Brendan Murphy has pitched his last game for the Cincinnati Reds. Just atrociously ugly. Fell off of a cliff at late 32, early 33 years old. Megavolt out. Next up, we have a guy who's kind of looking towards the opposite, and that's Neil Siddle. Neil Siddle was a minor league free agent signing in March of last year. He was up and down a little bit. He made appearances in AA, AAA. He made appearances in the big club. We use him as a starter. We use him as a reliever. He got a lot of different play, but the big thing with him is that he had a huge jump forward in terms of ratings. Between the 2028 and 2029 scouting reports, he gained 20 points of stuff, gained 10 points of control potential. So now he is sitting as a starter at 80 stuff, 40 movement, 65 control, and has 10 points of potential control that he can find in there as well. He was really, really good as a starter down the stretch. When I look at the splits, he had a few months there with ERAs in the threes. I mean, his ERA was no higher than 3.33 in any month after May. Lots of quality innings in there. Ultimately, for him on the season, at the big league club, he pitches in 41 games, makes 10 starts. He goes 4-7 with a 3.87 ERA. He also chipped in 7 holds, 9 shutdowns. He goes 90 and 2/3 innings, gives him 91 hits, 28 walks, 85 strikeouts. So that's good enough for 2.8 walks per 9 and a 8.4 Ks per 9. 298 BABIP, which is right in that 300 window that it's not too lucky. His FIP, he did outperform his FIP a little bit, 4.51. The big thing with Siddle is, what are we going to do with him going into next year? Because, he does only have 40 stamina, but there is a lot to like here with Neil Siddle. So Neil Siddle, with the season he had, he finds himself in the B column. I think there's a lot to come there. He's only 25 as well. So again, some we've been saying all along, right? We need some talent change, randomness, luck. We may have hit one here with Neil Siddle. Maybe he's a guy that, we can use as an elite follower, pitching for 4 or 5 innings. Maybe we start him and we try to get him through 5-6 innings every game. Again, 40 stamina is a bit low, but either way, nice to see this growth. We're going to have options with Siddle in 2030. I'm looking forward to it. Great start to his big league career. Finds himself in the column with a B. Peter Hancock, who was one of our big surprises last year, took a bit of a downward turn this year. He did pitch in 6 more games, but his ERA was a full point higher than it was in the season before. He did have 4 extra holds, 9 extra shutdowns, and 4 extra meltdowns. He goes 86 innings, has a 3.98 ERA, only chips in 0.3 wins above replacement, which is, ways down from the 1.9 he had the year before. His FIP was at 4.28 after being 2.82 the year before. Again, for a team that's really, really struggling, a solid left-handed reliever piece. I wouldn't throw him out to pasture. It's going to be interesting to see. He's 31. Is he going to be a guy that we're going to keep around? He's going to be ARB eligible here. We'll see. He was a guy that, for the $4 million we paid him over the last 2 seasons, we got 150 games of really good relief, close to 180 innings of really good relief from Hancock. So if he has pitched his last game with the Reds, I would say that we're very happy with what we got out of him. An A performance, or I can't remember if it was A or B last year, but a C performance this year. So again, nothing great, not terrible. We were glad to have him. Rutherford Shirk, a guy who we signed, he's been around the block, 36 years old, a guy that we signed strictly for the popularity. But man, what a great season he had. Again, obviously he's on the decline big time. His ratings are down to like a 55, 50, 50 now. He appears in 65 games with picks up a couple saves, 3.38 ERA, 5 holds, 11 shutdowns, 82 and 2/3 innings with 83 Ks. 9 Ks per 9, 3 walks per 9, 8.1 hits per 9, 1.2 wins above replacement. Considering his age and him being on the decline the way he is, sure gets a B. I think he exceeded, expectations. Again, on a team as bad as this, a 1.23 whip, holding opponents to a 245 opponent's batting average. Just an overall really good season for Shirk. Not going to be somebody we're going to bring back. I think he's asking for, more than we're willing to spend. It's going to be interesting to see, if we consider keeping him around just for the very popular, fan interest boost. But again, if this is a one and done for Shirk, good for him. I think he maybe pitched himself into possibly finding a team to pick him up on a cheap deal later in the winter. Maybe. Miles Gross, who was a guy we claimed on waivers from the Angels in January, had a very nice season. 72 games, 3.94 ERA across 80 innings with 90 strikeouts. He kind of a forgotten guy in the back of our bullpen. 0.7 wins above replacement. He has a 380 FIP, 10.1 Ks per 9, 2.6 walks per 9. Again, not a guy that you were disappointed in. Every time I would get the sim come in, he really didn't have a whole lot of really bad games. 9 holds, 9 shutdowns, 9 meltdowns. Just a guy that pitched really well in middle relief. He's a fan fave as well, so he put some butts in the seats. As a arbitrator, I think he's renewable and then arbitration, so we're gonna have him back as well. Just a guy. Had a good year in a bullpen that, was pretty good. Again, you see a lot of these grades. You really, even though the pitching staff rated as bad as it was, a lot of that is a method of circumstance. Bad defense, bad run support. You see there are some good performances up in there. Speaking of good performances, that brings us to our last guy, and that is our third Rule 5 pick. This is Kieran Allman. Kieran Allman we got from the Yankees, and again, what a really, really good season Allman had. He gets into 70 games, picks up 25 saves, a 3.22 ERA, 23 shutdowns, 78 1/3 innings with 100 strikeouts. So you look at the peripherals, a 203 opponent's batting average, a .98 whip, 11.5 Ks per 9. He only allowed 18.5% of his inherited runners to score. The fact that he was a Rule 5 pick and to have those sort of peripherals in the bullpen makes Kieran Allman an A for me. When you grab these Rule 5 guys, the expectations are basically nothing. So to see those sort of residual numbers, the low average, the low whip, the high Ks, lots of saves, not allowing inherited runners to score, you love to see that. Great season for Allman. I'll be glad to have him back in 2030 and hope he can replicate that for us as well. So now we flip it on over to the hitting side. And I think we have this sorted by ABs. Yes, we do. So that brings us to our designated hitter, Josh Brecken, who set a major league record with 699 at-bats this season. I would say Brecken took a little bit of a downturn from 2029, where he was one of the best rookies in the league with a team record 61 doubles, 300 batting average. This year, the counting stats are still there. 80 runs scored, 196 hits, 50 doubles, 15 home runs, 86 RBIs. The K and walk ratios are still about the same. A little bit of a downturn in the extra base hits because of the fewer doubles. A little bit more total bases. The average is down a bit to 298. The slugging percentage is down 50-some points, which means the OPS is down like 80 points total. So again, for not a not a horrible sophomore season from Brecken, but the counting stats are up because the at bats are up by about 80. So, again, not a great season, not a terrible season. The big thing with Brecken is that he's not your prototypical DH. He's only hitting 15 home runs. It doesn't look like he's going to develop um, whack of power. We were hoping maybe, we'll see what the move to 24 brings, but I can't see it. But again, he's done a good job. He gets on base, a lot of doubles. Nice to see that mid-teens and home runs again. So a bit of a step back for Brecken, but still not anything that you were going to be super disappointed about. Next up, we've got our big free agent signing from the last year, which is Rico Segura, our big first baseman, and he had a really good season for us. 144 hits, 37 doubles, 37 home runs, both of which are career highs for him, I believe. No, sorry, he did have a couple of 40 homer seasons when he was with Boston. But in the last 4 seasons, so since 2026, that's the most doubles he's had, the most home runs he's had, the most RBIs he's had, which you like to see for sure. 76 extra base hits, close to 300 total bases, 242, 337, 497 slash, right on 2 wins above replacement. Again, for what we expected and what we paid for Segura, he's not getting paid in that upper elite money, and he made $14 million this past season. That to me gets him an A. He did basically exactly what we wanted him to do, which was provide us some left-handed power in the middle of the order. He's 30. He'll be 31 by the time the next season starts. So we got a couple more years on this deal. And again, if we keep getting lines similar to what we've gotten there, where he goes 30-30 with home runs and doubles, hits close to 240, drop a couple of wins above replacement, we're not going to be disappointed with that. So a good season for Segura. Lincoln Lanu, what a season difference make. Lanu, who, in 2027 and 2028, by all reasonable metrics, outperformed the bat that he should have had. And we saw that take a drastic downturn in 2029. A 50-point average drop, a 140-point OPS drop. He goes from 5 wins above replacement to 1.5. And a lot of that has to do by also a downturn in his defense. He had a 6 ZR drop this year. He did still contribute 13 outfield assists, which is nice, and turned a 2.5 positive arm runs, which is nice. So again, the ZR drop not completely tanking him in the outfield. He's still contributing with the arm. And again, 2.5 arm runs is not nothing as for a guy who's been mostly negative in his career. But again, the big thing with him was he dropped that 80 range, 80 down to a 75, which again, 75, nothing to sneeze at. But is this a sign of more things to come? Are we looking more towards a guy who is going to have to be a corner outfielder in the future? There are some positives with Lanu this year, that I think I would be remiss if I didn't highlight. He did have another back-to-back 40 steal seasons. He steals right on 40 and limited his caught stealing. He had 47 last year with 14 caught stealings. This year he had 40, only got caught 7 times. So that is the first time since his rookie season that he did not have double digits in caught stealing. So again, contributing with the legs. But yeah, just not a great season for Lanu. And I hate to put him in the C spot, but that's where he has to go. I think the bat regressing more towards what the expected value is going to be, and then a little bit of a knock on the defense. Obviously, I think he's a huge bounce back candidate. I think his BABIP being down 50 points last season, and I mean when you look at it, it was 36 points below his career average. So I do think he's a good bounce back candidate for 2030. Nat Rowlands made his debut at the big league level this season. Our 7th round pick in the 2028 draft gets into 120 games this season after we traded Muhammad Al-Mahmoud to the Cubs. Again, Rowland's knock is going to be he's just ass in the field. He commits 13 errors, negative 13.7 ZR at second base. I don't think he's a long-term answer at second base. I really don't. I don't think he's a long-term guy in the field, period. I don't think, I think as we start developing, I look at like Noel Carlson for a guy who we drafted last year, who, could be our second baseman of the future, who has a bat, but also has that kind of that defensive profile to go with it. 285, 321, 376 on the slash. Rowlands is more of a contact avoid case kind of guy. Did have 33 doubles, chipped in 41 RBIs, 23 walks, 59 runs scored, right at the 0 wins above replacement. I think, this is a solid, right on that B-C line in terms of performance. I think the defense keeps him from being a B. I just think you can't really have a guy a B who's that big of a defensive liability in the infield. Good numbers. He didn't replicate what he did in the minors, but a lot of it did translate. He put the ball in play. His BABIP was really good at a 345. We'll see what the future brings for Nat Rowlands, but for now, on a rebuilding club, he's doing a good job. Liberio Cubas, who was our platoon third baseman, and then for the second half of the season kind of took over, ends up with 126 games played, 82 starts, 251, 298, 425 slash, 1.4 wins above replacement. It's 12 homers, 38 RBIs. He doesn't walk a lot. I'd like to see more power. Again, 330 ABs and 12 home runs, a 425 slugging, while not terrible. I'd like to see that be a little higher. He's still young. He's still got some time to grow. The work ethic being low obviously is going to keep him from greatness. He was a positive ZR player at third base as well. So again, I think for Cubas, I think that's a solid C season. I might have to drag these over. Hopefully we have enough room here. With 5 guys to go. I think we might be okay. We'll see. But yeah, I don't think Cubas is our third baseman of the future. I don't think he's going to be the answer, but solid work. He's not a huge liability in the field. The bat has been pretty good. Obviously, the averages weren't what they were in his 155 AB cup of coffee in 2028, but he started showcasing some power. He chipped in 21 doubles, which is nice. Harlan Lujan, man, I have a love-hate relationship with Harlan Lujan. He was a guy that in 2028 came up after, playing like wildfire in the minors. Hit, 268, hit 12 home runs. And then this season, after we had acquired Leonardo Cobb, we started Lujan in Double-A. And Lujan, in 155 plate appearances in Double-A, slashed 413, 471, 732 with 7 homers, 27 RBIs, 15. I mean, the guy couldn't miss. So we dumped Cobb, picked up some pieces back for him, and got Lujan, who was a 2026 third round supplemental draft pick. We got him back in the big leagues, and he had a really good year. He ends up slashing 297, 336, 472, 12 homers, 51 RBIs, 21 doubles. He lands right on 100 hits. He doesn't walk a lot, and I don't think that's something he's going to ever really get good at. But, and he's a bit of a liability in right field. He's a -9 ZR player, but again, I don't think right field is going to be his permanent home. I think he ends up being more of a first base type. But again, 22 years old, you love to see that kind of performance. Lujan just continues to succeed when we give him the opportunity to play. So for that reason, he ends up a B. I think he's deserving of it. He hits the ball. He puts the ball in play. He hits the ball for power. Just an all-around good guy. I hope he keeps it up and continues to make life difficult for us. Well, I had the wrong way. Brian Dainzer. This is going to be an interesting one. So, after the trade of Al Mahmoud, we decided, you know what? There's no better time than the present to bring up our 2027 first-round draft pick. He wouldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. 126, 226, 222 on the slash with a 231 BABIP. Awful. Just atrocious. But at the big league level, he had 3.6 ZR short. Is ZR short for the year 12.6 when you combine it with what he did in the minors? The big thing with Dainzer is that he has 80 infield range and 80 outfield range. We're going to find a spot for him at shortstop or center field. He chipped in 19 stolen bases, which is nice, and he just got a 5 points of dev to his stealing. So, he was 19 for 30. Conceivably, if he could get the BABIP back up to where it was when he was in the minors, which is right around 300, if he could get a low 200s batting average, but steal 25 bags and play Gold Glove shortstop defense, great. I'm going to put him down as a D only because the bat is so bad. But I think this is just more of you give him a full season, and there's a little bit of development that can be done to the avoid Ks, the eye, and keep that elite defense. I think Brian Dainzer is going to be one of those guys that, the no bat types that we talk about. Because, again, he can play Gold Glove defense at every position on the diamond. Every infield position, every outfield position. He can do it. Again, those double 80 range are rare. We're going to see how it goes. Terry Barnett, who just will not go away. He won't opt out. He won't let us get rid of him. He just hangs around. He's got another player option coming up. I'm sure he's going to exercise the crap right out of that and put us on the hook for $15 million next season. I can't wait. We keep him around because he's very popular locally. This season, not great. 238, 329, 413. He did have 11 homers, 43 RBIs. He's disgruntled. He hates being here. It's starting to show. He's 36. His ratings are just not, going the way they are. Although he's hanging on to the bat. I give Terry Barnett a D mostly because he's a pain in my ass. Because we keep him around for the fan interest. But I am comfortable in saying that I think Terry Barnett has played his last game with the Reds. And then I say that, and then once he opts back in, we'll find a spot for him as an outfielder. Carson Caston. Man, I would love it if Carson Caston could develop some of those 20 power points that he's missing. But it's not happening. We gave him a shot at the big league level. 208, 273, 295 is what we got. Negative 1.2 wins above replacement. Just not great. He's terrible in the field, which we kind of knew. I feel like he was at that age and at that spot where I had to give him a chance. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to give him a chance to see what he could do, if he could do anything, if anything was possible out of this player, and I just didn't get it. He hit well in his time in AAA last year. I thought maybe he could do it. He does keep the Ks down, only a 12.6 strikeout rate, but he doesn't put the ball in play a whole lot, and when he does, he's got a 228 BABIP. So maybe unlucky, but Carson Caston goes down there with Brendan Murphy as an F. I just don't see any redeemable quality. I mean, yes, his bat tool still has some development left, but he's got to get it. He's 26. The clock is running out on Carson Caston, and he needs to figure it out. And last but not least, Grover Siedzinski, who was a catcher that we called up after we made some moves early in the season. Pretty respectable data here. 280, 322, 338, or 383, sorry, on the slash. Good enough for a 705 OPS. 5 homers, 34 RBIs. He had 7 doubles. Doesn't strike out a whole lot. He took over as the starter. He gets 61 starts total. He took over as the starter after Jordan DeMichaelis was traded to the Angels. He chips in just under a win above replacement. He's not terrible in the field either. He has a little bit of a negative ZR. He did only throw out 24.4% of his runners, which is well below any of his minor league metrics. He threw out 36.4 in the minor leagues, 24.4 in the big leagues. He did chip in 1.2 framing runs as well, which you'll like to see. I do think we'll see him rebound more into that 28 to 30% thrown out percentage because he does have a 60 arm. Do I think Siedzinski's the long-term answer behind the plate? It's hard to say. He's got a nice bat profile. I like what I've seen from him so far. I'm going to put him, I'm going to put him. I wrestle with B or C here. I think, I'm going to put him in the C because there's more. I'm hoping for more pop. I think the lack of power is something that concerns me, and that has dogged him everywhere he goes. He does have 50 power, so to me, you have 50 power, I expect you can creep into the double digits. He had 10 total on the season between both levels, which is right there. I just think I'd like to see a little more. I think maybe if I put him as a C, it lights a fire under him, and we go from there. But there you have it, folks. That is the tier list for the 2029 Cincinnati Reds. Nobody makes the S tier, which, if I'm not mistaken, might be the second straight season that's happened. I don't remember if we had anybody in the S tier last year. One guy that is missing from this list, so I will give an honorable mention, and he's missing from the list because he's injured, and I'm not over it. But Emmanuel Agilov is another guy who probably should have a spot on this list somewhere. And let's just throw him in there at the last minute because, we're doing this live, folks. Emmanuel Agilov, and we'll just do this. You know what? Let's do this. Let's do it this easier. Emmanuel Agilov. So he's missing from the list because he's hurt. Agilov would probably have fallen into the A category. Another great season for our leadoff hitter. Again, he got hurt in early August, missed the rest of the season. 306, 348, 427 slash. 27 doubles, 6 homers, 46 RBIs. He just continues to be a good leadoff hitter. He's the spark plug of our team, which is what his personality is, so it makes sense. Just keeps hitting the baseball, putting the ball in play, hitting for a good average. So Agilov, the late edition of Agilov, puts him in the A category. But either way, we still have no S's, so it is what it is. So I thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys enjoyed the 2029 version of the Reds tier list. And until next time, keep swinging for the fences.